This is all by design. This, to me, is not a father that just wants to reconcile with his son. This is a deep strategy to bring Harry back.
Is King Charles secretly trying to engineer a comeback to the disunited kingdom for Prince Harry and maybe even Meghan Markle to try and stop his eldest son, Prince William, and his wife Catherine, the Princess of Wales, from shining so bright? That's the question. Lauren, the insider, has been investigating for us, and she joins me now. Lauren, hope you had a wonderful Christmas. What have you discovered?
Well, King Charles has gone out of his way to bring Harry back in, despite the fact that the nation, the Commonwealth, people around the world are up in arms about it. And this, to me, is a very it's a strategy he's planned, because it doesn't just happen by accident that Harry and his aides, or his aides, met with King Charles's aides back in the summer. And then we see Harry roll out to Ukraine. Then we see the fake royal tour. This is all by design. This, to me, is not a father that just wants to reconcile with his son. This is a deep strategy to bring Harry back. But I don't believe that Harry will move here, because it doesn't offer him the same opportunities in his mind that Montecito does. And I don't believe that Meghan's ego is compatible here. We've seen it before, Dan.
Lauren, for those who don't know your background, for many years you were one of the UK's top PR professionals working with the mainstream media to try and protect the reputations of very, very famous people. For people who don't know my background, I was at one point the executive editor of the Sun newspaper, a columnist for the Mail, so was on the other side of the coin, understanding how those relationships between the royal family and the British press worked. And what some people will really struggle to get their head around, Lauren, is that for so many years, King Charles has viewed his sons as a threat, as a PR threat. And even though there might be a positive relationship between father and son, their offices have competed with each other for the best coverage, to see which newspaper editors they could get in their pocket. And so you'll have the situation where it's like, King Charles calls up Victoria Newton, the editor of The Sun, and says, "Oh, I'd love to invite you to Sandringham." And he charms and woos her. So then Prince William feels like he has to do the same thing. There's been a degree of competition from a PR perspective between the different royal courts. Can you just explain how that works and why it might feed into the narrative a little bit in terms of why Charles views William as a real threat? Because, of course, over the past year, he's basically said, "I ain't playing the game anymore."
Notice the shift in the king's strategy here. For years, the approach was grey rocking, total silence. But as 2025 progresses, there's a growing sense that Charles is looking at the Sussexes not just as family, but as a potential counterweight. If the rumors of Project Thaw hold weight, we're seeing a king who is prioritizing the long-term stability of his own reign over the immediate comfort of his heir.
So each royal household, as such, has their own PR and comms department. And that PR and comms department, their job is to protect their clients. So if it's King Charles's comms department, it would be to protect Charles and Camilla. And obviously, Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, have their own. What we see, for example, with Prince William is his team do not sweat the small stuff, and they don't engage with the mainstream media in the same way that, for example, King Charles and Queen Camilla's team do. Queen Camilla is heavily involved, in my opinion, when it comes to behind the scenes in the media. She is incredibly well connected. People may not know this, but she will frequently have very high ranking, powerful editors and decision makers within the media attend her events. And this has long been the case. It's no accident that Queen Camilla went from public villain to then having a much softer image, because she knows the people that are writing the papers.
Hence her friendship with Piers Morgan, for example. That so infuriated Prince Harry and Meghan Markle.
Exactly. And it's interesting when you mention Harry and Meghan, because it's long been known that the relationship between the royals is a push and pull. So the media, to some degree, can have a little bit of flexibility regarding what they write about the royals. So you'll often see that there will be a baddie or there'll be a villain, and then the next week it will change. And it's a bit like waves, Dan. It comes and goes. And the royals need the mainstream media to stay relevant, in their opinion. I mean, I would disagree with that. And the mainstream media needs the royals to be profitable, because the mainstream media heavily rely on royalty as part of their business model to shift newspapers or to create clicks. Harry and Meghan wanted to reinvent the wheel. So they really lashed out at the mainstream media. And whilst I'm no fan of the mainstream media whatsoever, the way in which Harry and Meghan went about this is entirely wrong, because they sweat the small stuff. They want to sue the media on one hand, and then they want to feature in the media on the other hand. Now, going back to the point of King Charles wanting to make sure people don't overshadow him, I completely agree with this, because when Harry flew into the country in earlier this year in September, I have it on rock solid authority that the other royals were told to just chill a bit. No big engagements. And so whilst some of the royals were doing engagements at this time and were featured in the media, it was very low key. There was nothing that would overshadow, in King Charles's opinion, Harry's visit. And this is where we saw Harry waltz in, and there was a disconnect between everything that was running in the mainstream media and how we, the public, that, you know, everyone in the Commonwealth, everyone around the world felt, because all of a sudden we were being presented with coverage that was hugely out of touch with how we all feel, because the same mainstream media had brought us the news about how our royal family had been accused of these horrific, inaccurate allegations of racism, and they'd ran lots of pieces from Harry's book, which were just so vulgar. And so this had come from the king. When Harry came in and all the media were writing positively, this came from the king. And the reason I know this, and you know as well, Dan, media will not write favorably about someone who is suing them, who is taking a huge newspaper to trial in the new year. They will not write nicely about them. We only need to look down about how they've written about us. When I've been reporting for you, they said I petrified a reporter and they got the name of your show wrong on purpose. The mainstream media will go for you if you threaten them. And when I say threaten them, obviously we've never threatened them, but we hold a light up and we show how they operate.
Well, we do threaten them because we're revealing how they really work, and we know how they really work because we were doing it for such a long time. That is a threat to their business model, which is already collapsing.
It's a classic royal maneuver. bringing the outliers back into the fold to better manage the narrative. This is where the friction becomes undeniable. For William, the Sussexes aren't just a PR headache. They are a threat to the very brand of duty he's spent years building with Catherine. The tension we're discussing isn't just about a sibling rivalry. It's a clash of ideologies.
Well, I mean, I would have used the word threat, but I then just get scared that Keir Starmer, I'm going to get cuffed because I've had that intelligence come to me.
It's not a physical threat, but I mean, it's a threat to their business model, isn't it? The thing is, Lauren, that Harry and Charles may have an uneasy truce, because it's sort of like your enemy's enemy is your friend. And from a PR perspective at the moment, for King Charles, as bonkers as this may sound, given the issues that he has with Harry and Meghan, given the issues he has with Andrew and Fergie, William provides the real threat to his reign, to his legacy. Because what you've seen happen over the last few weeks is some brave people start putting their head above the parapet and saying, Charles's reign looks like a disaster. Sure, we have sympathy for him because of the timing of his cancer battle, but everything is unraveling. And that was behind the William interview with Eugene Levy, where he made it clear that there were not going to be any golden gooses, that things in the monarchy were going to change. All of that is for Charles a dagger to the heart. And so what Charles's PR team are doing is thinking, well, Harry, yeah, things aren't great between us and Harry and Charles, but Harry might destabilize things for William, because at the moment, William is gaining too much control, too much power, too much influence. The center of gravity within the British royal family is moving towards William. And for Charles, that's a disaster if William is viewed as a regent, as if he's sort of running a regency.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes people, or the mainstream media more so, they criticize Prince William that, he doesn't do enough or Catherine doesn't do enough. But this is simply not true. They are not allowed to do more. It's so clear. And all they need to do is one appearance and look where the coverage goes. It's like a ripple effect. It goes so far around the world. And that's because we love them and we love their family values. We love what they stand for and we love their integrity. They have always put their roles first and they are an absolute credit to us all. And King Charles doesn't like this because he's weak and he has shown us he's weak. And I believe that he's trying to please everyone. And the problem is when you please everyone, you stand for nothing.
And the thing is, oh, sorry, Lauren, finish your point.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Harry coming back in any capacity is a massive problem because we've seen every single activity or piece of charity work or event that Catherine and William do. We've got the grifty duo over in Montecito that then try and dominate. They try and take over. And it's ridiculous. And this is exactly why they have to come off the royal website, because King Charles is trying to please everyone. He's trying to be a father, but he can be a father without them coming back. He can be a father without them being on the royal website.
William represents the lean-in monarchy, while the king appears to be entertaining a big tent approach. When we talk about sabotage, it's about the oxygen Harry and Meghan consume every time they step onto British soil. Oxygen that William feels should be reserved for the future of the crown. What Lauren is tapping into here is the invisible machinery of the palace, the courtiers and advisors who often have their own agendas.
Lauren, I couldn't agree more. Because even though we are trying to explain here the motivation behind why King Charles might be engineering this, we're trying to paint a picture of what's really going on behind the scenes of what people aren't reading in the mainstream media. That doesn't mean that I agree with this strategy, and I'm sure you don't. Charles is making a huge mistake here, Lauren. What he should be doing is leaning into his eldest son, bringing his eldest son into his court and say, let's modernize the monarchy together. But the problem is Charles doesn't want to give up that power. And so he does want to try and marginalize William. And what that means is he's not making many of the correct decisions, Lauren. I'll give you two examples. The first is Andrew, right? Charles had to make a decision to either stand by his brother, come what may, or do the unthinkable, and do the unthinkable first before you are forced into it. Instead, there was inertia, and he did nothing. And when the announcement finally came that Friday night a couple of months ago, it wasn't enough. It wasn't an announcement from the king. It was an announcement from Andrew himself. It didn't please anyone. It didn't solve the mainstream media issue. And William was proven right, because just 2 weeks later, Charles had to finally get tough, strip Andrew, boot him out of Royal Lodge, and then his team briefed to the media, oh, this was all down to Charles. He's been really tough. He wasn't, though, because if he was being tough, he would have done this not just 2 weeks ago, but 2 months ago, 2 years ago. Instead, he tried to bring Andrew back into the fold like he's doing now with Beatrice and Eugenie. So that's the first example. The second example is, of course, Harry, who William has warned his father about for such a long time. Now, of course, when you're battling incurable cancer, you don't necessarily want to be waging a war with your youngest son, your darling boy, someone who, of course, you have love for. But again, you've got to look at how the late Queen Elizabeth II separated her love for Prince Andrew, widely regarded as her favourite son, and her duty as a monarch to take the correct advice and to banish him from public life. And the fact that Harry got his way because of this battle between Charles and William is infuriating for me, because I think if I was advising Charles from a strategic point of view, I would say, number one, you've got to get really tough. So Harry's title has to go. The children's title has to go, Archie and Lily. Meghan has to be banned from ever using the HRH. There's got to be a tough action there. You've got to get tough on Beatrice and Eugenie as well. Maybe they are nice girls behind the scenes, but they're not bringing anything to the monarchy. And who cares exactly? They're not big enough. They're not an asset. They're just not an asset. And we've got to just be absolutely brutal about that. And unfortunately, they do have some of the grifter quality of their parents, which maybe isn't a surprise, because look at how they've been raised. And I don't say that with any joy, because at the same time, I do feel sorry for them in terms of what they're having to go through. And then just bring William in. Make out that we're doing this together. We're modernizing the royal family together. And I'll tell you why I would give him that advice, Lauren, because if he's worried about his legacy, he could take some of the ownership of this modernization project, begin it with William. Otherwise, what's going to happen is this is going to be a very short reign between a very famous reign, arguably the best reign we've ever had. I mean, I certainly feel that way about Queen Elizabeth II. I guess maybe because I lived through it. That's one of the reasons why. But I think she was our best monarch, and it was an incredible reign. And then William's reign, which I think is going to be bold, is going to be daring, is certainly going to pose some challenges for traditionalists when it comes to the monarchy like me, but fundamentally is about trying to save this institution. And what is Charles? When you look at those two different reigns, what's he? He's just going to be a footnote in history if he continues to treat William as a rival rather than an ally.
Yeah. There's a fascinating dynamic at play where the King's camp and the Prince of Wales's camp are reportedly briefing against one another. This isn't just gossip, it's a power struggle. If Harry and Meghan are being used as pawns in this war with wills, it suggests a deeper fracture in the House of Windsor than many are willing to admit. Don't overlook the timing of this return plot.
Charles is making a huge mistake, because Charles's reign is, and this is me just being factual, it's very, very forgettable. And what we will see is when William eventually becomes king, there is going to be a huge, huge difference from Charles to William, a lot is going to change. And all the clues have been here already. We see the fact that Prince William, and I nearly say King William then, because in my mind, he is already working subtly to start making really positive changes. We don't see William work with the mainstream media in the way that the Royal Rota works. And I love this. And this is, it brings me great comfort that William will do some incredible work, because the Royal Rota that King Charles seems to love so much, and it's the only media that's allowed into the palace. It's so important people remember that some of these newspapers are the same newspapers that have hacked people's phones. Some of these newspapers are the same newspapers that have bought private and confidential evidence from police, it has been rumoured. So these are not newspapers that are trustworthy, and the way that they run, we have previously seen, it's disgusting.
Totally. And
so,
also, they are the past as well. I mean, the idea, Lauren, that King Charles thinks that he can take the public with him because he's got the newspapers in his pockets is delusional. It's totally delusional. And William understands, sure, the newspapers play a role, but the reason he hasn't given in to the Daily Mail and played their game, and you've seen, by the way, this year, Lauren, the most revolting attacks from the little attack dogs, you know, Amanda Patel and Liz Jones, they're all being sent out to attack William and Catherine. Why? Because William will not give in and play their game. And what happened? Charles hired Tobin Andre, my former boss at the Daily Mail, to be his communications secretary, one of his main courtiers. He was a former senior executive at the Daily Mail. So, okay, you've got the Daily Mail in your pocket. The Daily Mail isn't powerful anymore. The newspapers no longer control what the public think because they no longer have that control over our information, thanks to social media, thanks to citizen journalism, thanks to the independent media. So again, I think where Charles is a little bit delusional and again looks archaic, to be honest.
So out of touch.
Is the idea that, oh, the newspapers are behind me, so everything's great. No, it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter anymore.
Meghan has spent the last year pivoting toward a global lifestyle brand. A reconciliation with the king provides the one thing her brand currently lacks: the undeniable royal seal of approval. From the king's perspective, granting this may be the price of peace, but for William, it's a betrayal of the firm's standards. It's a high-stakes game of chicken where the prize isn't just family unity, it's control over the royal family's commercial and moral standing.
Yeah, absolutely. I spoke to Tom Sykes recently, and he was reiterating that there's no outside media that's bought into the palace. It's very much the Royal Rota, which we know is propaganda. And so when this is presented to King Charles, he thinks, oh, yes, it's brilliant. But I'm afraid that King Charles has ultimately, in my opinion, made a decision to align himself with the mainstream media and with Harry. And the fallout of that is there's a massive disconnect between us, the public, and our friends in the Commonwealth and people around the world. And also, there's no protection for Prince William as well. So on one side, you've got Harry and Charles, and the other side, there's the rest of us. And King Charles is making a devastating, he's putting a foot wrong that I can't even convey how disastrous it is, because no one reads the mainstream media now. It was previously a way to control people. We saw, even if you go back, pre-pandemic, people were consuming it. Post-pandemic, we are in a totally different landscape. People go on YouTube to get their news. People follow, content creators direct. So Charles is only appealing to a very, very small slice of the public. And that is, is carving out a huge amount of people that he is ostracizing with this. Now, on the note of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, we saw King Charles did not take action. It was Andrew that made the statement, which is insanity, because he should have never had the power to have made that statement in his own words. And we've still got no clarification from the palace as to why this even happened. Now, we all know it's through public pressure, and it's the book that came out from Virginia Giuffre, and it's the fact that Andrew and Sarah both lied about the Epstein emails and the timeline. But we haven't had that in black and white. And the palace do as little as possible to just get away with things. And that has to change, because then through public outcry, they went a step further. And it was King Charles or the palace that then made the statement. But then I emailed the palace because post the second statement coming out, Dan, Andrew was still on the royal website. And this is disgraceful. And now he's off, but we will see every single thing that's happened. It will just repeat with Harry and Meghan, because again, King Charles has been incredibly weak with this. And I want to reiterate that on a personal level, I truly wish him a full and speedy recovery. And I do hope if his wish is to reconcile with his son, Harry, then that they do that. But that is totally separate to how he is running the country as king and how he is managing everything, because we look to the royal family to be our stability, and we are in very, very turbulent times all around the world, and our king has acted very, very badly. He has prioritized a ratbag son who is on the other side of the world, taking everything he gets into the public domain. You know, we have seen him on the Stephen Colbert show behave appallingly. And I always say, regardless of which side politically you sit, if your name starts with Prince, you don't go into those waters talking about those things. He cannot be controlled. And this goes back to as well, Harry was always a construct of the palace, the jokey lad, the this, that. What you're seeing with Harry is who he is. He is showing you very, very clearly who he is. The carefully crafted and orchestrated image that people fell in love with, I truly believe is a construct of people working round the clock at the palace. Because if you look, we've seen who Harry is many, many, many times before he met Meghan. And I believe that his behavior has just got considerably worse since Meghan.
As we wrap this up, the question remains, is a house divided against itself sustainable? By entertaining a Harry and Meghan return, Charles may be trying to heal his family, but he risks alienating the man who will actually sit on that throne next. We're watching a historic shift where the personal feelings of a father are colliding head-on with the strategic requirements of a future king. This isn't just a royal rift, it's a blueprint for the monarchy's survival, or its eventual decline.